G. So what we do, we're gonna get it started. Uh, so we have John. John here is one of the guys that always show me love. I appreciate you here, John. Dakota, welcome. I think it's the first time I see your name, so welcome. As people trickle in, George will I disable the waiting room so people will just pop in and out.
Okay.
So once we're done, it will be posted on the Rising Coaches platform, so people that missed it can go back and watch it again. That said, thank you, sir. I appreciate you greatly for your time today. For people that don't know, George is someone without him knowing that I've actually been following back when he was an assistant at Anoka. I was trying to go in there and try to get a workout in and see if I can get guys to work out. And I was like, man, who can I talk to? And one of my guys that live in Coon Rapids like, man, go to Anoka. There's a brother there. He's an assistant. He's definitely can help you out with that. And before he and I can connect, he moved on to other things. And fast forward a few years, Mr. Scott Savor connected us again when I came back from overseas and was looking to do some player development stuff. So definitely humbled, and thank you, sir, for your time again. Just start by, just introduce yourself a little bit to people that don't know you and your journey through where you are now.
Absolutely. First off, really appreciate the opportunity, Mendel. I think anytime you get the ask to share your story and your pathway, it's one of those opportunities to I never take lightly, and so really appreciate the opportunity, and thanks for everybody who jumped on today. I know everybody's got their own situations and challenges and things like that, but I appreciate it. Bear with me here. There might be a little adjusting that I need to make with this iPad. I might need to switch it over a little bit, but if I need to do that, hang in there with me. I'll make sure I keep talking so we at least get the audio. But I guess a little bit about me just in terms of title. I currently act as the director of the basketball academy with the Minnesota Timberwolves&Lynx. We, in a nutshell, really work to grow the game of basketball. We work with the league on many different initiatives to grow the game, as well as build a deeper connection with our fan base within the upper Midwest. And so there's a strategy that the league has put together along with our team. And I have a team of 3 full-time outstanding dynamic people that work with me, along with I report to Mr. John Thomas, who is the Vice President of Basketball Development, former Gopher, former NBA player and 10-year overseas veteran. And then throughout our programs, we have coaches essentially that help to lead a lot of our on-court activities. And over the course of a year, we usually have about 40 coaches that we work with in various capacities, whether it's within our practice facility, at the Target Center, and even we've taken coaches with us out of state on Native American reservations and different schools and programs and things like that. So pretty extensive program, a lot of moving parts, a lot of things going on, but really fortunate and to be in the position and to essentially do what I really love doing, and that's growing the game, developing relationships with coaches, mentoring coaches, and helping move and advance the game forward in any way that I can. So in terms of title and role and things like that, that's essentially kind of the gist of it.
So how do we get to director of basketball academy?
That's a great question. And, what I'll tell you for sure is at no time in my life did I write on a piece of paper that I'm going to be the director of a basketball academy within an NBA team. Um, quite frankly, when I started my basketball journey, that wasn't even a possibility. Just in a nutshell, I, played basketball growing up. Went to University of St. Thomas in St. Paul, Minnesota. Was on the men's basketball team. Got a degree in business, and really my plan was to go overseas and play basketball, and then come back home and start a business. And what you really find a lot of times in life is sometimes the plans that you originally have don't necessarily always work out essentially the way that you want to. But if you have that goal in mind, if you have that path in mind that you really want to attain and strive for, you will get there. The road that you'll take will look a little bit windy, a little bit up, a little down. There'll be a lot of maneuvering that you have to do in order to get there, and it'll really test you to see if you really want to do what you say or think that you say you want to do. Fast forward, I actually, after college, did not do anything basketball related for 6 years. So I went right into corporate sales. My thought was, I'm not really interested in coaching. I want to make money. And so I went right into the business world, corporate sales, selling inside and outside, and building relationships, and essentially went down that path for about almost 4 years. Had a couple businesses in between, and what happened to me was, I think in about 2008, 2009, really came to the realization that, I was just kind of burnt out of the grind of sales and working in the corporate world, and just really wanted to give back more than anything. And so I decided that I was going to work for a nonprofit organization, and really an after school program. And during that time, I was at a school that had an after school program that was separate from the school, but the athletic director at the time took notice of me and thought that I did a great job working with the young people there, and basically asked me, I'm looking for a middle school basketball coach. Would you be interested? And at that particular time in my life, that's exactly the path that I was heading. I wanted to get into coaching. I wanted to be able to mentor young people. And so coaching was a natural fit for the next phase of my life. It was one of those situations where it's a public middle school team in the city, in the inner city where I grew up in. And, I had 17 kids on the team, and I couldn't cut anybody. And it was really about, being really creative and really learning how to establish small things in order to build a program. And so, I would check grades. I would make sure that the guys were respectful. I would show up to teachers and see, what they were doing in class, and just little stuff like that. But that really fueled my fire and my passion for the game and really coaching. Fast forward after that, I had started with a friend of mine an AU program, a spring basketball club program. And we had started with, 10 kids. And one of the things that we always really wanted to hit home on were just, we really wanted to develop the skill of the player, and then we wanted to develop the mind of the player. And so not unlike today, you see a lot of good programs out there that really do a good job of developing player skills with their time. They're not just rolling out the ball and expecting players to know what to do, but we really hit that home. And from there, it really allowed me to drill down into, well, how do you develop a player? I wasn't under a coach. I didn't have a big program that I was really working. And so essentially what I did is I just started becoming a sponge and a student of the game. And so at every waking moment, I would have a notepad, and I would jump on YouTube and figure out, okay, who's the best at teaching this? How do you teach this? How do you teach solution-based basketball? How do you teach skill? Who's the best at teaching, shooting and all the skills necessary? And the person that I always came back to in all my searches was a gentleman by the name of Gannon Baker. And
Yes,
some of you
sir.
guys, a lot of you guys have probably seen the work of Gannon, but you know, I just became immersed in everything that he was teaching, and it made sense. It was on point. It was truthful. It was in your face, but it was funny. He had a personality, but he could do anything with the ball that you would ever want to be able to show a player how to do. And essentially, that was my digital mentor. You know, I said I want to be like that guy one day, to a certain extent, but my own version of him. And so it was a lot of that. I dove deep, and at one point, what I did was he had a really good clinic down in Florida at a 5-star hotel, and I actually paid to travel down and go through a cohort of 3 days of his coach's clinic, and it was the most phenomenal learning experience that I've ever, probably still one of the more phenomenal experiences that I've even had still today. And it was just a really transformational experience, to really get me sold on, you know, coaching, skill development, player development, coaching the heart, not just coaching the X's and O's. And so, you know, from there, you know, it was somebody that I stayed in contact with, and I essentially implemented a lot of the things that he was doing into what I was doing. In our program, going back to our club program, the other kind of pillar of what we really stood for was really helping to coach the mind. And so that what we did was, rather than you know, having a hour and a half practice on the court, we would do 45 minutes before every practice in a classroom, and really implemented essentially our own curriculum. So it was all life skill development, mental development, helping players kind of navigate through some of the challenges that they were dealing with. And you know, we had a curriculum, we had a book that my friend and I developed, and it was really intentional. And so it was a great opportunity for players to learn, and the players loved it, the parents loved it, and we essentially grew the program from 10 players all the way up to, I think at one point when I left, 110. And then you know, beyond, my friend is still running that program, and there's well over 250, you know, players, 300 players in that program that still happen in the spring and summertime. And so through all that, you know, obviously this story is getting longer, but I never stopped coaching. So I was extremely hungry. I coached essentially every season for 7 years, high school basketball, club basketball, and then I trained in between. And so I went during one of the chalk talks that we had, per se, and we had a gentleman, a coach by the name of Larry McKenzie, come in, my buddy's former high school basketball coach, and Hall of Fame guy, had won 4 consecutive championships with the school that he was at one point. First African-American coach to do that. At the time, the program that he was at, Minneapolis Henry, they were a nationally ranked program. They beat Oak Hill back in the day. And they had, you know, he had 19 kids go Division I in 9 years, and he just had a program that he was running. So, you know, after he came in and he spoke, I was like, I got to learn from this guy. And so I became essentially a sponge to Coach McKenzie. Anywhere that he was at, I was at. Anywhere that he was sharing information, I would bring a notebook and I would write down notes. Really fortunate because he was always a coach that was open to sharing, and really wanted to position coaches that wanted to grow to wherever they wanted to go. And so he was one of those coaches that, you know, wasn't high and mighty. It wasn't about him. Really, it's about helping other coaches get better and learn and grow. So basically, I volunteered with him my first year after coaching that middle school team. I was the strength and conditioning guy, so I was the guy that helped players in the weight room get better. And then I was a skill development guy, so wasn't getting paid, just volunteered my time. The following year after that, I became the 9th grade coach, and we always had this running joke that we were at a private school, and he said, "George, you know, excited to have you as my freshman coach. You know, you're gonna do really well. I got some really, really talented guys coming in. You're gonna be excited." And I remember it didn't really work out like we anticipated. I think most of my guys ended up being baseball players, and he kind of set me up for the quote unquote okie doke. But it was fun. It was a great opportunity for me to learn how to be the first guy in the seat. How to have and be prepared for different situations, how to have communication and deal with parents. A lot of the things that you need to have as a head coach, and a lot of things that you even learn, and even as a head coach at the ninth grade level that you wouldn't as a assistant coach on a varsity level, dealing with a lot of the different things and dynamics and things like that. So fast forward, worked with him all the way up to his associate head coach. We moved over to Minneapolis North High School, which is a storied program. At what point the school had close to 2,000 kids, and through open busing, the education system, the school was on the verge of closing down. We got there with 85 kids at the school. It was really a tough situation, but we went in knowing that we could really create a program and build athletics back up. And this is the same school that Khalid El-Amin went to, 3 straight championships back with Minneapolis North. And he was the guy that beat UConn back in '99, I want to say, or excuse me, beat Duke in '99. But
that's history right there, G.
yeah, it was some history for sure. But from there, we built the program back up, and really kind of anchored by a player by the name of Tyler Johnson, who's currently just got this past draft, got drafted to the Bucks in the NFL. But really started with him and took that group all the way to the state tournament and won the state championship in 2016. Always, throughout that entire time, just always learning and growing, going to coaches clinics. I'm always a big advocate of continuing to be a learner. And so we would go down to the Final Four and go to the NABC conference. We would go down to Duke and listen to Coach K. We would listen, go to all the coaches clinics here locally in the Twin Cities. Just anything that we could do to continue to get better. And so, after that, I really kind of heavily dove into really the training business, and was really diving into that full time and essentially leading kind of my own training organization, and that took me some really cool places as well. So I got a chance to lead some opportunities on 2 separate occasions in Turkey, and then I've been to Africa 3 times running different camps, and actually the last time we led the first 16U girls first ever national team training camp, which was a pretty phenomenal transformational experience. So always continuing to develop relationships, understanding the business of basketball and how things work. But long story short, I was working at the National Sports Center and decided to go back to school to get my master's degree in coaching and athletic administration, with either a path to head coach or college coach one day, or potentially athletic director. And during that time, I was training a group of players, and one of the players' fathers that organized it, he was the deputy director of this large sports facility in the Twin Cities, and basketball guy, but they never had a basketball facility. And he asked me essentially, if we were to build a basketball facility, what would it look like? How big would it be? How much would it cost? How do you take a basketball facility and actually make it, make money off of it and make it last? And long story short, I was hired basically to lead that project. They hired me basically to be a consultant to basically build a dream facility. And so I was actually during my college grad school, so I used it during my thesis. But it was really doing a lot of research and asking a lot of questions and talking to facility owners and managers and coaches, and putting a program together. And from there, presented it to their board. They loved it, and essentially they hired me to be the director of sports development and basically take this facility idea and actually create a facility out of it. So we did that, and it wasn't the 16-court facility that I wanted, but it was a scaled down version, and we were able to make some really cool things happen and run some really cool programs and train kids and things like that. after that, or kind of during that time, I always had a relationship with John Thomas, going back about 8 years or so, and during kept staying in connection. He was looking to bring on some coaches for a couple other initiatives that he was doing, and it was kind of conflicting with some of the things that I was doing at the time. But we maintained a relationship, and two falls ago, during the Minnesota Basketball Coaches Association, I went there just to learn, sat in the front row, and was listening to Coach Prom from Iowa State. And during that time, I ran into John again, and we had a great conversation, and they were doing some great things in the league in terms of growing the game and developing a better, more substantial program in the youth and high school basketball space. The conversations just didn't really kind of go much besides for kind of talk about what they were doing, because I was really happy with where I was at. And but after probably 4 or 5 months, he kind of pinged me back and said, I really have an opportunity here. We had some people decide to move on, and here's what we're building, and here's a blank slate. You tell me what you want your job description to be, and then it was one of those opportunities that I just really couldn't pass up. So, long story short, guys, that's how I got to the Minnesota Timberwolves&Lynx.
Now, interesting thing you brought up, the building the recreation center for the basketball play. So essentially, because one thing that I hear a lot of coaches talk about, well, they want to be a head coach, right? But I don't necessarily think a lot of coaches think about what is your buildings going to look like. So what is the one thing that you learn in that process that if you were to be the head coach of the Gophers, that you can say, okay, I learned this, that's going to help me set up my building in such a way where players going to be happy, fans going to be happy, and so on and so forth?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the short of it, I mean, obviously there's a lot of things, but I mean, I think understand that college basketball, if let's just say it was the Gophers, college basketball is a business. And I think, I think there's a lot of coaches that, if you want to be the guy that's in the first seat, you have to really understand how it is a business, how your job really helps to drive the business of college basketball, and what you need to do in order to help propel the mission of the university and the mission of your athletic department forward. It's way more than just winning games. It's way more than just having a press conference after the game or before the game. There's donors involved, there's facilities, there's schedules, there's managing your staff, there's managing your players. There's a lot of things that go on involved in, and I think that you've got to be really a coach with a business mindset to be ready to take that seat. Because quite frankly, I mean, if you're a Big Ten coach, you're getting paid $1 million plus a year. And so, the university is looking at you in dollars and cents. So if I play a coach $1 million, I should be able to recoup X amount of dollars in ticket sales from these many wins or these many appearances, or because of that particular person's name and personality, I should be able to drive these many fundraising dollars because this person is just somebody who's a great connector, and that our funders and donors will believe in that particular coach and where that particular coach's vision and mission is. If you don't see yourself doing a lot of that, then I'd probably say it's going to be probably a challenge to be in that first seat. And then even if you got the opportunity, you'd hate the job because there's so much more than just X's and O's or teaching guys how to dribble and shoot. It goes way, 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 way deeper than that.
By the way, you guys, if anybody have questions, please feel free to jump in. I cannot stress that enough. He's a wealth of knowledge, so feel free to ask. Since we are on the academy, GE, let's talk about the impact of camps to a program, right? And whether it's money revenue, whether it's community outreach. Talk a little bit about that, if you will.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think camps are essentially the staple of they're the staple of grassroots basketball. Period. I mean, I think that from a money generating perspective, the camp business drives more dollars within amateur basketball probably than anything. I think tournaments are kind of probably trying to catch up a little bit, but I mean the notion of a camp it goes back to the beginning of basketball and when people really kind of started. It's just an easy way to get a lot of kids together, a lot of players together on one court or however many courts that you have, and maximize the time and space with the number of people that you have there. It's really important, and for us, we utilize our camps in a couple of different ways. Number one, for us, it's really to deepen the connection with the players. Most and really from a league perspective, the league decided to get into youth basketball, high school basketball, because it's really, really good for the game. If we can teach players how to play the right way, and we can impact and influence the game at the youth levels, essentially at the top, the players in the play will be hopefully better if we do it right. The second thing is, some of the business of basketball. If you can influence a player at third grade, and you're affiliated with a team or a brand, that player will develop an affinity for that particular team or brand as a third grader. And so, that's really important. And especially like if anybody on here has a desire to coach college basketball, well, you really want to have a robust youth camp business as a college basketball coach at all levels, because if you can get third graders, fourth graders, fifth graders, sixth graders, and plus to buy in, number one, you create a new revenue stream for yourself, which your athletic director will be excited about. Number two, you'll create a new revenue stream for yourself, which will hopefully bump you up to where you need to be if you're in a lower paying position or you're looking to make more money. And then number three, it's just good for the business of the organization. You can get kids and families to buy in at third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth grade. Then those eventually will be season ticket members one day. They'll be more apt to go to the games. They'll be more apt to buy a T-shirt and some of the other things that drive the business. So that's a very critical and key element in any program in my mind. Duke runs a basketball camp, right? Coach Cal runs a basketball camp, and they're at varying levels, right? You could run them for kids that are just learning to dribble, or you can run elite ones that have top players on them as well. And those experiences look a little different from each. But it really is. It's fun because you can really make that what you want it to be.
Questions, anyone?
Hey, sorry, not really a question. So first of all, I'm Menelik Fernandez. I'm from Canada. I coach at Fleming College, and thanks for taking your time to present. I've loved it so far. I was just wondering if you could touch a little bit more on your experience in Africa and the camps there. I'm actually pretty intrigued. So curious to hear the story of how it happened and what it was like, obviously.
It's a great question, Coach. I appreciate it. And I've been in Winnipeg one time. That's been the one time that I've crossed the border. My wife and I, we went to go watch a Bulls and Timberwolves game in Winnipeg and took the 8-hour drive. But hope to get up there a little bit more.
You got to make it out to Toronto for sure.
Absolutely. So it all really happened uniquely at the time. This was probably about 5 years ago. In the Twin Cities, I was really known for being a really, really good player development coach, and then just a pretty good coach and communicator in general. And I had a friend of mine at the time, high school coach, was essentially had a relationship in Tanzania, which is in East Africa, right below Kenya. And he asked me to come out. He said, "Hey, you're gonna have to pay your own way, unfortunately, but this is a really cool experience. He was actually named the national team coach at the time, and he brought me out, and it was an opportunity to really help to drive some initiatives that he was looking to drive, as well as the Tanzania Basketball Federation, some of the things that they were looking to do as well. And so, essentially, we had dates, and we went out, and essentially what we did was we traveled from city to city to city, running camps and clinics, very grassroots style, going from Dar es Salaam, which is a city in East Africa with 50 million or 5 million people, to Manduli, which is way far out in the bush, where there's no running water, no electricity, and no paved not no paved streets, but there little paved streets. And so that was the first experience for me, and it was extremely transformational. Number one, the Africa is such a untapped area. It is, and obviously Coach Mandel is a
I'm with you. I'm with you, man. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But just Tanzania in general. I mean, it's a country of 50 million people. There's maybe 10 indoor basketball courts, maybe. There's one quote unquote national stadium.
I have to unmute myself for that one. Wow.
Absolutely. And I would probably say that there might be 40 or 50 paved basketball courts in that country. Maybe. Probably 50 maybe 50 or 60 paved basketball courts in that country. In a country of 50 million people. So just for numbers' sake, if you put a basketball in kids' hands when they were in 5th grade, and you had basketballs and shoes and coaches that knew what they were talking about, you would, by sheer numbers, have way more players to come out of just that one country in Africa. And just think about all the other countries that are similar. Not every country is undeveloped as that country, but there are a lot that are very, very similar. Outside of that, I built some really, really good relationships. We were literally all over the country by bus. Became friends with a lot of the coaches there, and in Africa and in Tanzania and specifically, in every major area, there's a guy or a number of guys that run basketball within their area. And so built relationships with a lot of those coaches, a lot of those folks that run, kind of administer basketball. And then from there, really developed a relationship with the national team captain out there, a younger guy who has a great personality, wanted to become the minister of sport in the country. And he said, I want to learn, I want to grow, I want to continue to play. And essentially at the time at the National Sports Center, we were really about international exchanges. And so we ran the world's second largest youth soccer tournament. We had 30 countries represented, and we were just about that. And so I invited him actually to come work with me at the National Sports Center. I needed somebody to help on some of the facility management side. And I wanted to mentor him as well. And we had dorms, and we had, it was perfectly set up. We had dorms, we had cafeterias, we had all that. So I invited him to come back with me, and he eventually came back. And long story short, we went back a couple times after that to run, a little bit more organized programs. And then the last time we ran a girls' national team camp led by a school in a rural part of Tanzania that American teacher started a school there, and school that is doing extremely well. He's got a campus of about 7 buildings and one of the highest performing schools in the country. We ran it out of there, and essentially that's how I started in Africa.
Coach, that's an awesome experience. Do you think you will ever return? And if you do you need an assistant? Because I've actually, so like I do a lot of stuff with the Raptors 905 where
Okay.
like I get out and watch their practices, and I've been on court with them for their open tryouts a few times, etc. And I've been really, really bothering JAMA to try and get involved in Giants of Africa. But I mean, that's obviously a fairly close-knit group, but it's been a dream of mine for a while to have some sort of network and get out there and see what basketball is like there.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate that, and appreciate you sharing the context. What I want to do, I think the next phase, and it kind of got put on pause because my wife and I had 2 children, so we have 2 children, 2 and under. So right now it makes it a little challenging to travel, as I can see your child in the background. You get it. Uh, but what I would really like to do, for sure. What I would really like to do, and I just got to put this program together, is I'd really like to take coaches over there, and for a week, 2 weeks, or whatever that time is, to really drive home and do some things like Masai is doing with Giants of Africa. I think we could really do that with any coach that wants to volunteer their time, and eventually it'll be nice to turn it into a more of a substantial program that we could pay for everybody. But more than happy to. I think if I can swing it next year, probably, well, obviously with the coronavirus, probably next year, if everything works out towards the end of the year, I'd like to do that. But I will be sure to connect with rising coaches, with Coach Mendel. That would be something that would be really unique if we could bring a bunch of coaches out. And I got places where we all could stay and we could all make it work. So that would be really cool.
Well, so just total aside from this, like I'm in 100%. I could pay my own way if I had to, and I could put on a few guys who would also be very happy to volunteer their time as well. Also, just as another FYI, in Canada, we get tons of African players contacting us directly, asking like to be recruited to come over, so to speak. They're wide open right now. They're playing. They're like most of their countries are not restricted at all, which is really intriguing.
Yeah, no, I have through the gentleman, through his name is Murshid Mudrikat, through the player that I brought over, he actually had 2 of his really good friends that played in Newfoundland at Memorial University. Actually, one of them, and he brought his brother. So through him, we've talked a lot, and he shared with me that there is a pipeline into Canada. From the Sudan, from a little bit from Tanzania and some of the other areas. But I think that, I mean, if you're a coach, and for recruiting purposes, I mean, if you're a coach and you're looking for players, Tanzania is, and just different parts of Africa, it's really not that hard to identify and find players. You obviously have to find players that can afford to go, but I don't even think that's, it's a barrier, but in my mind, it's not a and I don't know what the rules are in Canada, but it's not as hard as you think. I mean, and people think that if you haven't been to Africa, you think that it's a bunch of trees and woods and, in Dar es Salaam, I mean, it's a city that's heavily influenced by, India and Asia, and I went to the most beautiful beaches that I've ever seen in the world in Africa, and there's a lot of resource, and so it's really finding out how, and I think what's even smarter is how do you work with the country to develop some sort of exchange program through the embassy, and really make it organized, and then how do you do it that way to where you could get somebody to support in some way, and obviously there's eligibility rules and things that you want to stick through as well, through the NCAA and through the governing body in Canada. But there's ways to make it happen. So once you establish the pipeline, then it's easy, then it's easy to get players that you would need to run your program.
Yeah, we're wide open if they can pay. We don't really have any restrictions, right? So like we can have as many international players as we want type deal. It's just a matter of the tuition cost difference.
Yeah. No, I saw when I was there, I mean, we had guys walking around that were talented, that's for sure, that were just looking for the opportunity. And Well, what will be good is once the Basketball Africa League kicks off, that'll be good for the sport. That'll be good for the country. Because really, I mean, if you're depending on what country you're in, some countries don't really have they don't have a professional program. So, and they don't even have college basketball. Everything is a club sport. So, you're kind of looking up to club, but there's no Raptors. There's no Raptors 905. So having the Basketball Africa League will be huge because it'll at least give younger players something to aspire to that's a little closer to home rather than the NBA. And then it'll give those players that are older that can play at least a track to run into. And then obviously the Basketball Africa League is connected to the NBA. And so that'll even be a further track for those players that are actually talented enough to be able to get to that level.
Gee, I want to, John, you have a question?
Yeah, unless you were going to go.
No, go ahead. This is about you guys, not about me. It's about you guys.
So I've kind of been looking on your website a little bit, obviously. So I was kind of curious about some things. Obviously, what are kind of your day-to-day duties? Like, what do you do? And then I see you guys have like a lot of instructors on here. What's kind of like your goal with the instructors? Are these people, when you hire them, they're looking to grow the game of basketball with the youth? But, are you looking to kind of groom them to eventually, like, do these people necessarily have goals to get into college coaching, the NBA world, stuff like that? Like, what's your process with hiring? Like, what do you look for in being the director of the academy?
It's a great question. So, and there's a lot of things that we haven't developed yet that I am in the works of developing. I started a little over, approaching a year and a half. And so, we had to change a lot when I started. I mean, we changed our logo, we changed our brand. We did a lot of business stuff in terms of that. We had to get in alignment. We had to really change our reputation in the basketball marketplace. Really, a lot of NBA teams, at least the basketball communities, at least in the Twin Cities. And I think a lot of them see their youth programs as really just a babysitter, just for young kids, little kids and stuff like that, which, we totally understand and get. But what we really wanted to do was we really wanted to create a place for everybody. So how can you take those little kids and provide something for them to get them introduced to the game and the brand? But then how can you also level up and provide something for a player that is really talented, that wants to play college, or a player that's, and we have to be mindful because there are tampering or there are restrictions as a league that we have to pay attention to in terms of, top 100 kids and things like that. But we had to reformulate a lot of that stuff in order to get in order. We had to hire some people. We had to do some kind of shifting. But essentially what and we have a lot of things that we want to do, and some of them are still on the table. We're very entrepreneurial. So my thing is, for us, it's to really be the expert and the leader in basketball from an experience perspective. I want to be able to provide the best experience that nobody can duplicate within the upper Midwest, being the biggest basketball name within the upper Midwest. So when you come to a camp, when you come to a clinic, when you come to a tournament, we can provide stuff that people can't even touch. So whether it's instruction, our coaches are more knowledgeable, they have more energy. From a gear perspective, we can give you gear that you can't get anywhere else. We can bring players that nobody else can bring. And then through our relationship, even with corporate partners, we can just do some stuff because we have the resource that nobody can do. And it would be a no-brainer to come to one of our experiences because we just do it better than everybody else in a more unique and an engaging way. From a coach's perspective, and we're really drilling down into that right now. I mean, I'm fortunate to have a full-time staff that can manage other areas that of the business. So I have a full-time manager by the name of Bree Sally, who's outstanding, and she manages all of our staff. So from a scheduling perspective, we actually run over 100 events a year. And so that's camps, that's clinics, that's on-court experiences at Target Center, that's youth games at Target Center, that's high school games at Target Center. we do a lot. So it's a lot to manage. And so you really need really good people. So I've got a manager. She manages all of our staff from hiring to working out. I'll work with her to help develop those coaches, to figuring out what their goals are, where they're really trying to go, to you know, and you know, during like our holiday clinics, last holiday clinics, we had 1,000 kids sign up for our holiday clinics for 5 days of clinics. So there's days where you got 3 clinics going on in 3 different locations, and you have to manage all of that. And there might be 75 kids over here. There might be 150 kids over here. How do you manage that logistically with coaches and making sure everybody's safe and communicating with all the parents? So that's a lot of what I have to essentially put together. What we're really trying to do in terms of the coaches is our goal is really to develop that pipeline from academy into G League into Timberwolves or Lynx. So that essentially is our vision, to create that trickle down to where if you're an academy coach and you just get started with us, and you might be a high school coach somewhere, or you know, you might be a part-time, you know, you might be a college assistant, but you want to work within our organization as well. I want to help you if you're looking to learn and you're good enough and you're dedicated enough to at least kind of earn that with us first and kind of prove that with us first. And then from there, if your desire is to get introduced to Coach Saunders and, you know, you want to do that, then we can make that happen. That's not hard. And we do a lot of things in conjunction with Coach Saunders. So we'll run, like, the goal this year was to run the Coach Saunders camp, and it would have been a collection of Coach Saunders and then our staff, and then we would have ran that experience together. But that would have get, you know, coaches on the floor, our coaches on the floor with Coach Saunders firsthand, you know, for 3 days, 2 days, or whatever, 5 days, and then you just to get to develop that relationship. And that's all the NBA is just relationships. You know, it's just a lot of people that know each other really well that do a good job. But even from there, what we had talked about was even creating this track that was a direct line into our G League franchise and a spot as an assistant coach within our G League franchise. So how do we, and really the idea for me is, number one, to create that platform, that opportunity for coaches. But number two, how do I get better coaches that take this really, really seriously? Because there's a next level, you know, to go to from here. And so if I have a spot on a G League roster, then I can now start to cycle in some of the best coaches within the upper Midwest. And then when I need to make a recommendation of, all right, here's somebody that I think should move on to this next phase, we can do that. And then really the thought was salary, pay for your stay there down in Des Moines, and just take care of that coach. And then obviously let that coach earn their way, and be involved in summer league, be involved in, you know, the player development workouts, be involved in bringing players in to work them out for the combine and things like that. That's where we're really building to. It's really total alignment between, you know, our program and all the way up until the Timberwolves, and then even having a version for the Lynx as well, if that's something that, you know, they wanted to do too. And we've got a little bit closer relationship with Coach Saunders, and Coach Reeve is she's dynamite. She's got, you know, USA basketball and all the stuff that she's got, and the 4 rings to prove it. But at least we were going to start with Coach Saunders and kind of developing that pipeline, since we've got a little closer relationship there at the moment. That makes sense. Hopefully that answers your question, Jonathan.
Now, real quick, Jim, kind of segue using the Coach Saunders thing, the importance of having the face of your franchise, your head coach, be involved in the academy. And I want you to talk about that, because I remember, I think it was my first one, the first camp that I worked in the facilities with the Timberwolves. And even for me, I was a little bit nervous. I thought, man, I really got to make sure I got to bring my A game now, because this is really happening.
Mendel, you were so nervous. You probably sweat through your shirt. I remember it vividly.
Hey, I was, because it's just like, okay, now it's not, you're not away. Now all eyes is right there. And we had other higher ups, in the buildings as well. And I remember Bree made sure she told us, hey, bring it, or you're gonna get yanked out. So, but the importance of it, what I found very interesting, and I witnessed the same thing, camps I've done with in St. Thomas with Coach Tower, and even Marquette with Coach Woj. Once the kids saw Coach Saunders, there's electricity in the room. Oh my God, that's Coach. So really talk about. Now I want you to kind of dig a little deeper into that, the value of having your head coach really involved in the academy, at the academy level, for the kids to see that.
Yeah, it's a game changer for us. I mean, that's what makes my job even more fun, because I think I've been a associate head coach at a high school program that won a state championship and was under a coach that won 7 championships. I was a college assistant coach as well. And then I've trained a lot of different players in a lot of different places. And so, as a coach by heart, you want to be able to connect with, coaches. Because, if I was a single guy, if I didn't have kids and a family, I'd probably be coaching a little bit more than I am now. But you want to be connected with the head coach, because obviously he's influential. He can help drive the program and what some of the initiatives that you're trying to do. Obviously the league is a, who do you know type of league. So if you have that relationship and you trust them and you're comfortable to the level where I can send an email to Coach Saunders and he'll email me back, that's always a good thing. It really, for us also, it helps us provide additional credibility to our program. So Coach Saunders, Flip, his father, was really, really invested in young people in youth basketball. And so Ryan, that's something that he really holds near and dear to his heart, and something that he believes is really, really important, and it trickles down. And so when you get the buy-in from the main guy at the main seat, it just makes everything else easier. And it makes it more fun, it helps to get player buy-in. It helps, drive, anytime Coach Saunders is there to speak on something, you can easily get the news to show up and blow whatever that is out of the water. So watch out, guys, I'm outside. So it's really important. I mean, at every single level, if you're a high school coach, and you're not involved in your youth program, you're totally missing the mark. And I get, running a high school program plus being involved in the youth program, that takes a lot of time, and I get that. But it makes a lot of sense to be involved. College, same thing. I mean, that's, you're building your brand, and you're building your fan base, and you're building your community. So, if you're a high school coach, let's just say in a small program, but you have 500 kids interested in what you do, that makes your game experiences that much cooler and more fun, right? That makes your camps that much cooler and more fun. That makes, if you're running elite camps, that makes your elite camps that much better, And so, you want to have your own personal brand that you're bringing to whatever program that you're at. And Coach Saunders has his own brand, right? He's got a nickname, Drip Saunders, right? He's the cleanest coach in the league, right? He wears tailored suits, and he's always got, slide on loafers, and that's his brand. He's going to bring energy. And I've sat into his practices, and it's like watching Eric Musselman. He's got energy. He's excited. He's passionate. He's doing some things that I see why he's earned his spot, not because his name is just Saunders, but he's bringing a dynamic that no coach is bringing, you know, and the players love it. The players, you know, when he first had workouts, he had he had one of our DJs spinning during the workout, like the whole time, you know. So it was a live atmosphere, and that's what he'll do is even during the course of the season, he'll bring a DJ to spin during practice, you know. So just that kind of stuff. I mean, at the end of the day, you're dealing with 19, 20, 21, 22-year-olds. Like, they want to have fun too. You know, it's the NBA is very much a business. And so how do you help guys reconnect back to when they fell in love with basketball, when they were a kid, you know, or when they were in high school, when it was carefree and they could just hoop, you know, when they didn't, you know, have to worry about analytics as much and interviews and media and what I'm wearing and all that kind of stuff. That kind of stuff is really, really important.
And one thing that you just mentioned, and I really appreciate you saying that, is really getting guys to go back to when they first fell in love with the game. And you and I, we talk about that here and there, just the player development part where it's not X's and O's so much, but it's really the person, right? Getting the person to be involved, be active, really appreciate the journey as opposed to driving that on the court so much. What is it that you found as a player development coach and as a coach that you would say is missing, if you will, from one side to another?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. You know, and you know, some people say it, and you know, I think there's kind of two kind of coaches. I think that there's coaches that really love X's and O's, right? There's the coach that just loves to be the tactician, loves the strategy, loves to figure out and be creative. There's that kind of coach. And then there's the coach that says that I want to take this player and I want to transform their life and their game with what I know that I can bring them that's totally separate than what the X's and O's talk about. And it's really coaching the heart and the mind. And I think it's critical. You know, I there's a place for the two, and that's one thing that's cool about basketball is you can bring both to the table. You can be one or the other, or maybe you are good at both in a way. And if you are, that's possible. There's some coaches that are really good tacticians and then connect really well. But I think, you know, usually we gravitate to one or the other, and then we grab an assistant that complements what we're not as good at. But it's critical. I mean, you know, you guys have heard it before. I mean, the coach is going to impact more lives, you know, in their lifetime than any other person usually, because of the game and because of what the game's all about and how important the game is for players. And so it's absolutely critical. It's a basis for, you know, I've you know, when we won the state championship in 2016, like, we had some talented guys. Like, I had two guys that could put their head on the rim and a point guard that could throw it from three-quarter court easily. But if we didn't know how to coach those guys' heart, we didn't know how to really pay attention to what's going on in their life. You know, if I didn't give Jaquan Sanders Smith a ride after practice every day to McDonald's or Popeyes so he can get a bite to eat, so he can go home and not be hungry, and connect with him on that level, like, you know, we just wouldn't have been able to be successful, because, you know, it can't be just about the transaction. It has to be about the transformation. You know, that's a critical element to the game. And that's in my mind, like, coaches that last a long time because they know how to connect. You know, if you don't know how to connect with players, but all you know how to do is teach a player to put a leather ball inside of an iron ring, which in the basic sense of basketball, it's really that easy.
Yeah.
If that's all you know how to do, then you're probably not going to be around for too long, and you're probably not going to have as much success. But if you know how to really dig down deep and have those conversations and really help a player go from entry level to mastery, then you can get far with players. And then, a lot of it, especially like when you're looking at the league, at the NBA, and even at the high school levels too, like it's about managing the players that you have on your team. You've got different personalities who are dealing with different challenges at home or at school or in their work life, in their part-time job and, with their girlfriends or boyfriends or, whatever they're dealing with. And you have to help manage that. And so, I was on a team, that 2016 year was one of the toughest year of coaching that I've ever had. And we won the state championship. Why? Because we really did a good job at managing the players and managing all the stuff that was going on. The haters, the naysayers, the guys that thought they should have got more shots and really deservedly, like they were good enough to get more shots, but we just had a lot of really good, talented guys on our team. For me, helping to balance out my head coach and saying, because I had a coach that was a bull and I had a point guard that was a bull. And, there was a lot of times where I had to get in the middle of those guys and say, Coach, if you just hang on and ride this guy out, we're good enough. We're going to win, but I need you to, and me looking over at my player and saying, hey man, just don't say anything to him because he's not going to back down as much as you're not going to back down, but he got the keys and you don't, right? You're in the passenger seat right now. So, helping them understand that, you got to really earn your way to get the keys. It's fun and it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of energy. I mean, I remember I tracked out, my running joke was, and this was real, I was Coach McKenzie always said, this is a part-time job with full-time responsibilities, and I was coaching high school, working 36 hours a week, coaching our high school basketball team, so, we were trying to run a full-time college style program. So, the coaching the heart is everything, you guys. And, I think even now, even in the NBA, I mean, because it's such a player driven league, like if all you know is X's and O's and you want to be the head guy, it's going to be hard for players to buy into what you're about if you're not really connecting to them. If all you care about is I just want to run, I want to run this and that and the other. And, eventually guys are going to get tired of running stuff, right? They're going to want to play. They're going to want to be able to connect with you. They're going to want to know like what's, they're going to hit a wall. Every player hits a wall. Why am I doing this for? You want to be able to help them. So, they're like, I got you, coach. What do you need? What can we do to get better? So some thoughts around that.
Gee, it's 4:36, man. We kind of went over by 3 minutes, and I apologize for that because I did ask you for an hour. If you guys don't have any questions, G, if you can just leave us with this final question. I was fortunate and humbled to have Coach McKenzie on with us the week of the whole George Floyd incident, and really he was supposed to be a week later. The coach before him, something happened. It was just crazy how things worked out. One thing I asked him was, as a coach, what is your take on the state of our society right now, and how would you address that with your players, or how are you in your position addressing that with your coaches, so we all understand where you at moving forward?
Absolutely. It's we're at definitely a critical juncture in our society. And I personally think that sport and athletes have the ability to bring communities, people of difference together, unlike anybody in our world. When you think about some of the history of integration, and in the 60s when the African American players on that Texas Wesleyan team were able to play and start for the first time, that was a monumental occasion that allowed people to not only see black and white a little differently, but to also get to know the stories of those particular players. And I always believe one of the most important things that we can do as coaches is we can bring different players together under the pretense of really breaking bread. I think, you know, breaking bread or having a meal with players, with families, with, you know, that one thing I love about college basketball is college basketball, you know, in a lot of ways it's a melting pot, right? You can get a player from Kenya, you can get a player from Canada, you can get a player from California, and you can bring all those players together with different backgrounds, different family structures, different socioeconomic and economic situations. And you can bring those players together to learn more about each other. So you can dispel a lot of the things that maybe those players see in their community, right? There's certain players that live in communities where they've never met somebody that has a different color of their skin, which is even, you know, which is crazy to think about. But that happens in Africa, right? Where African players have never met a white person in their life, right? Or a player, and in Minnesota, where you've got players that are white that have never met a black person in their life, right? So what's cool about sports and basketball is you can bring those players together, and they don't have to be on your team, right? You can have a relationship with a coach from one area, and you can bring those groups of players together to play. And then afterwards, you know, don't squander that opportunity just to play and then go home. Have a meal afterwards, right? Break bread, watch a movie together, you know, do some things in that particular community that maybe that other team isn't accustomed to, and then do a home and home and have that other team come to your home that next year, and vice versa, and swap it out. So I think, you know, more than anything, coaches have to be connectors. Coaches have to be the conduit to break down a lot of these barriers. And, you know, there's enough of us out there where we can really see some real change in the world by, you know, really utilizing the platform, you know, we call basketball, is not only a opportunity to coach the game that we love, but also to bring the world together in a lot of different ways. So that's my answer to you. Hopefully that provides some insight. And actually, before we go, I wrote down a couple of notes that I wanted to share with the group. I don't know how much time we got, but just some thoughts.
It is all on you, sir.
Okay, so I got some things that I wrote down that I thought were beneficial to me that I'll share with the group a little bit more specifically. I know a lot of coaches like to take notes, and I'm a note guy and a quote guy. So I thought this was really, really telling advice for coaches, you know, or things to do during a pandemic, right? So leadership is prepared to find solutions for all scenarios. Right now, we're in very challenging times. And if you want to be the head guy in the seat, you got to be prepared for every single scenario that would come at you, right? And to be able to provide a solution, whether it's on the court, I'm down by 2, I need a 3 to win it, or I need a 2 to tie it. You know, what am I going to do in that situation with who you have on the court in that situation, or in a pandemic where you can't touch your players, you can't see your players, and you still need your players to continue to get better so you can be prepared. So when the veil is lifted and we can play again, you'll be competitive to continue to be successful. Another thing that I thought was good was leadership learns to clearly simplify. So, you know, your ability, I think some of the best coaches in the world have the uncanny ability to simplify sometimes complex things. You know, players hear things a lot differently, and every player learns differently. And so if you can reach a player and communicate clearly, and sometimes that's live, sometimes that's in a picture, sometimes that's in a video or a song. If you can clearly simplify, I think you'll be a lot more successful because your players will understand and be able to grasp things a lot better. And I would challenge all the coaches during this time, you know what you know and know what you teach, but then find a way to teach it differently if you need to reach your players a little bit better. And then I thought this was really interesting. Leaders understand the higher you climb, the less control you have sometimes. So I think everybody thinks that, like, if I'm the head, I'm going to control everything. Not necessarily, because now your time is going to be taken away from other areas. So, you know, if you look at a Coach Saunders, for example, he doesn't create his schedule a lot of times. You know, media dictates his schedule. The planes leaving determines the schedule. The NBA determines your schedule. So so take that in mind and keep that in consideration that you're going to need people with you to help you manage, to help you organize, and things like that. Last thing I have, and this is kind of a 4-part thing, it's goal-oriented versus growth-oriented. I thought this was really good. So goal-oriented coaches move faster. Growth-oriented coaches go farther. Another one, goal-oriented coaches want an answer so they can get it right quickly. Growth-oriented coaches want to see process so they can understand how, why, and intent. They understand. So that's more big picture. Goal-oriented coaches.
Hey, if you can still hear me, do me a favor. Can we repeat that? Go over that for me again, please, because that was very.
Yeah.
I like that.
You want it all again, or just the last?
Yes,
one?
please, if you don't mind.
Okay, so yes, please, if you don't mind, for what?
Hey, come on, man! Stop making fun of me. I'm well mannered. Stop it.
Okay, I'll start from the beginning for you. Okay, so it's goal-oriented versus growth-oriented. So goal-oriented coaches move faster. Growth-oriented coaches go farther. Goal-oriented coaches want an answer so they can get it right quickly. Growth-oriented coaches want to see process so they can understand how, why, and intent. So they understand. Goal-oriented coaches want stats and analytics. Growth-oriented coaches want fit and culture. Thought that was kind of interesting as well. Goal-oriented coaches want to win a championship. Growth-oriented coaches want to develop players who will win at all aspects of their lives. So that was goal-oriented versus growth-oriented. I thought that was good sound bites and things that potentially could help you guys.
Well, G, I appreciate you greatly, sir. Thank you so very much for the time. I know we went a little over, but it was well worth it. I definitely appreciate the goal versus growth oriented coach, and I'm sure the guys I'll be watching this later on will feel the same way too. So, if anybody would like to reach out to you, would you like to share your information, or they can reach out to me and I can give it to them? It's up to you.
Yeah, absolutely. My email address is GELLIS @timberwolves.com. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions, ideas, thoughts. You need some information. What's cool about the league in general is we're a very collaborative league. So we talk a lot to our counterparts at different levels. We share information about the business, about the basketball, which is fun. I'm on WhatsApp. If you have any questions, you can hit me on WhatsApp or social media. It's just @George G. Ellis on Twitter, on Instagram. Feel free to connect. I'm more than happy to build a relationship and help you guys out in your endeavor as far as you guys want to go. So I appreciate it as well.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much, Mr. Ellis. Gratitude. We'll stay in touch,
Absolutely.
my brother.
All right, stay safe, everybody. You guys, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, guys.
Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
No problem.